Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you may be. My name is Bob Wright, and I'm here with Julien Wells, and welcome to the show. How are you today, Julien?
I'm doing great. Sunny day. I'm taking a little bit of this show outside, so I get to soak it in while using my phone. So I'm letting you take care of the switchboard and all that.
I will do that. I hope everything works out with your phone.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Technology is just incredible today, and it's about to get better. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Welcome everyone in the chat room. All of you who are listening live from Blog Talk Radio, and those of you who are calling in on the switchboard, welcome everyone to the show. Just a couple of reminders. We are here every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're in the United States. And also tune into our shows on Monday at 8 p.m., the One People's Radio, and the Collective Imagination, Tuesday, 8 p.m. And for those of you who are calling in, and if you have a question you want to get through on the switchboard today, please call in at 646-716-4598. Or if you want to call in just to listen, that's also fine. And if you do have a question, please press 1 on your dial pad. That will let me know that you have a question, and it will show me a little, your hand is raised up in the studio, and I'll get to you. Otherwise, I will assume that you are just listening in.
All right.
I think that's all of the technical stuff out of the way, unless you can think of anything, Julien, any announcements that we missed.
Well, I'm thinking a good format for us would probably do actually take in callers in the second half of the show, in the second hour. I think that worked well in the past because we do have a couple subjects, at least that I wanted to discuss with you and sort of bring up that I've been noticing are on people's minds in the last week at least. And the kind of like common theme questions that I'm feeling that are being discussed, and I just sort of feel we can bring some light from where we stand on those subjects. But first, I was going to suggest we talk a little bit about the Monsanto scenario. I know today is a really big day. There's some really big movement in terms of the protesting and making, our opinions and thoughts public, and letting Monsanto know that it's got to resolve its problems or get out of the way.
It's amazing the response that's happening with all of this, and one of the things that it brings back to mind is we're right back at the same spot that we were back in Atlantis, because that's exactly what they were doing back then with this whole genetic manipulation and trying to
rewire reality in a less harmonizing way.
Exactly. In a non-organic way.
Yep. So, the question can probably first come up do we have the right to do these sorts of things? Like, does anyone have the right to genetically modify or even clone or that sort of thing? And I'm going to be honest here, we actually do. We actually do have permission to do that. But what we don't have permission is to prevent others from following their path in their choices to eat, non-GMO food. And so what's happened with this monopoly is it's pretty much pushed and made the organic method of growing and farming, it's pushing them into a non-sustainable place for mass production.
Yeah.
So that's the real error I find in their ways.
Well, they want to monopolize basically food production. And, it's another mechanism. I mean, I think what I see is they realize that money as a control mechanism is going away.
Mm-hmm.
People have seen through that game, and they've seen through, the fallacy of all of our current financial system. And so as that is going out the door, they're preparing the new control, modality, which I think will be food, and they'll probably try and use some sort of environmental, like the carbon tax.
Right. The charge for water and a new level and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just another way of trying to, find a way to control the masses. But I honestly think that it's one of those things that was doomed before it even started. People were already wise to what was going on before they even tried to get the thing off the ground and launched, and so many countries are rallying up and basically passing laws outlawing GMO foods, and those that do allow it are lobbying to have these particular products labeled.
Yeah. So how I don't understand Monsanto probably as well as you do, and probably even not as much as a lot of the listeners. It's not that I've been just recently introduced to it. It's just that I don't have a strong opinion on a lot of the discussions and topics that have come up with regards to the control, situation, and, this idea of they want to, give us, weaker food in terms of the control of the quality of it for the sake of not just profit, but, being in the realm of like a conspiracy to, give us non-nutritious foods so that we're not, in a full, healthy state.
Well, you see, they can't patent an organic seed. You can't patent that because that's already patented,
Yeah.
It's already owned by the creator. But if they modify it, you understand, and they make a
twist.
A twist in it. Now this is a genetically modified seed. Now this we can patent. And once you patent something, you claim ownership of it, then, and you eliminate all of the other stuff, now you have a mechanism of control because people need food, right? And if you're the only person that can get it, and you're the only person that has the patent for it, now you're in a position of power. And,
yep.
This
it's
is
a way to, control the cattle, sort of element.
It's a type of thinking, that, well, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say it's an archontic way of thinking, this whole hierarchical, authoritative control, pyramid-like structure that we've been so familiar with, in our own society. It's one of those structures that really I don't feel a place in the future at all. I see this structure as unsustainable and unviable in our future. I just don't feel it happening.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. From an energetic point of view, when I just look into, even though I don't know Monsanto that well, it does not have much more to go in terms of its existence the way it has been going. It's actually more likely than not meant to transform and go a brand new route. It's going to probably do it very slowly, almost like just enough to keep people happy from complaining, but there'll always be people complaining when it comes to control. It's just as people awaken, they'll have to loosen their grip more and more. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's probably going to end up getting split up, to be honest, so that the different divisions of its responsibilities are given to smaller groups so that decisions can be made without so much top level down corporate influence.
You know, I think that like a lot of these things that you see popping up in the news, and I really like, I don't give any much energy to them anymore, because I'm looking at what the people are doing, and what I see happening is the people are starting to get more courageous. They're starting to find their courage, and a lot of the apathy, a lot of the lethargy and is going away. People are becoming more and more active, more and more outspoken, more vigilant than ever before. You know, it kind of has that feeling of the 60s. You know, that whole you can feel the overturn, and I'm going to use the word, you know, revolution, or better, evolution. This feels more like an evolution that really it just can't be stopped. You know, I see fear only increasing amongst the elite. I see it decreasing amongst the people and increasing with the elite.
Well, I see a small increase for those that are not, who are basically coming into this information brand new. There'll be a quick, you know, extreme moment of concern, but then it will not take long for those who are speaking the solution to give them a whole new hope in terms of the direction of where things are really headed.
Well, this is one of the things we wanted to talk about was what do we do with our fears?
It's
this is a huge, you know, a lot of people, you know, they're afraid of being afraid.
Yeah.
You know, because we hear this so often from so many different, you know, credible sources that, you know, fear is the mind killer, and fear is the thing that we need to avoid and get away from and get out of. What, in your opinion, is the function of fear, and how do we deal with it?
So fear is this element of stepping outside the boundaries of our reality. And I don't want to say the reality that we know it is, but the reality that we want it to be. So you say, you know, I have fear for my life. Well, the boundary that you don't want to cross is what is not being alive, right? Or you say, I fear for my money. And so what you fear is the unknown of what it is to not have money, or, you know, these experiences of people that you see are poor perhaps, and not wanting to experience that. So you have these boundaries where your reality is your present moment. It only is your present moment. Your reality is not your past, and your reality is not your future yet. So they don't want to ruin the present moment. And so what determines your reality of the present moment is all that you are grounded to, all those things that you take as familiar, all the patterns that you participate within and you encourage to continue, and even some that others encourage for you to continue. So you live within the grounding of others, or you could say within the realities that others decide for you, sort of like societies and morals and just, you know, general day-to-day choices that society makes. And to step outside those boundaries, you quickly find fear. You quickly find that you are in a disconnect from what you might perceive as the harmony of the current reality that you live in. To understand what could be more harmonious is, you know, in a position where you don't know what you could enter into. If you see like a celebrity, a lot of us look at celebrities and then we say, oh, I'd love to live the life of a celebrity. I'd love to have, you know, be a millionaire, a billionaire. And that's a boundary that you have removed yourself from your belief in life. The only boundary that stands between you is between that experience is that you don't actually believe you could attain that, or you want to overcome that boundary really, really quickly in a short period of time. You want to be a celebrity tomorrow. You want to be a billionaire now. You don't have to go through the transitional period. You're just looking to things you want to include in your reality. But so where you're headed generally doesn't hold a lot of fear if that's something that you're choosing. What you're doing there is you're removing the obstacle between here and there.
Well, I think what people a lot of times do is they take their painful, experiences of the past, and it's always, fear in my mind is always associated with a loss of energy, a loss of something. You're afraid because
it's a disconnect, right?
Yeah, I'm afraid of losing respect. I'm afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid of losing my life. I'm afraid of losing something. And when we've had experiences where we've suffered pain or we suffered loss of some sort, a lot of times we dwell on those and we want to prevent those from happening in our future. And we project our past into our future, and then we become afraid of what may happen or what's, going to happen. Or a lot of times, we're programmed into fear because we watch TV. If you're still watching TV, please stop.
Yes.
Move
away from the television.
Because you see these scenarios that are played out, and they're designed to play out in a certain way to lead to a certain conclusion. And these scenarios, as they are incorporated in our psyche, in our subconscious, when we start to see things, these programs get triggered. And these scenarios will play out in our head. And no matter how logical, illogical, as long as they're there, we have something to be afraid of. And I think that overcoming fear is a matter of gaining control of our mental process.
It is. And a lot of people don't actually believe or trust their mental process a lot of the time. They have assumptions that they don't have as much control as they do. And so they give the responsibility of overcoming their mental process to people like psychologists or gurus or, their friends even. The assumption that others know better about yourself and how to transition yourself than you do. Right?
Right.
Which is a fundamental disconnect from your heart's current, or your heart's natural guidance system that it has. Right? And some people believe that their guidance system does not serve them. They say, I feel this fear in my gut, and this gut, is going to lead me to pain, and so I should not listen to this, right? So they try to move away from the fear while not recognizing that their gut is not offering a signal that should lead them into a scenario that is filled with fear, but it's like a recognition that it is happening regardless of that intent. Now, if you pay attention to your fear, it can get worse. It can, manifest itself more traumatically. It can manifest itself more quickly. And so some people make this assumption that if you look at your fear, that you're just going to make it worse. And so people constantly are running. Right? They're constantly running. They're constantly
it becomes
putting
a
things
cycle. It becomes like, this endless cycle, that they're where they literally become afraid of the fear, and they're constantly, in this mode of it puts you in this cycle of reaction. Where you when you're reacting, and if you look at the word react, it is almost the same word as create. Just the letters are switched around a little bit. And when you're reacting, you cannot be creating, which is what you really want to do. Because as long as you're reacting, you're in fear. Now, there is a movie and if you've ever seen it, it's amazing movie. American Beauty.
I have not seen it, but I know of it.
Okay, you got to watch it. It's a great, awesome movie. And
okay.
the one line, Lester Burnham is sitting in front of as he's blackmailing his boss. His boss just looks at him and says, "You unbelievable." I forget what he called him, but he says, "No, I'm just an ordinary guy with nothing to lose." And once he had nothing to lose, and he was in a level of empowerment that he never experienced before, and he used his power and this newfound to get what he wanted. But that line in the movie says so much, because once you're at the bottom and you've got nothing to lose, you no longer have anything to fear. And then once the fear is gone, then all of a sudden, you when you lose that sense of foreboding fear, all of a sudden you're empowered, and so many other options are instantly in front of you because you were afraid to do them before. But now all of those doors are viable paths or possibilities that you can take, and it's amazing what happens when you get past that, when you can move past that pattern, that cycle. And in any kind of pattern or cycle, and fear is definitely, it's a pattern. In any kind of pattern, you first have to become aware of it.
Well, take note that what is it specifically that makes you uncomfortable, right? Some people say, how you don't know that you have a fear, and someone else points it out in here and says, you have a fear of commitment or something, and then you're like, do I? And you wonder, can you, a lot of people, do they even recognize their fears sometimes? That can be really deep.
I think they mask it with, they recognize that it's there on some level, of course, but they mask it when they're not willing to deal with it. They mask it with something else. It's one of those things that you
or give it excuses.
Yeah. Or they externalize.
They say that's perfectly normal.
Right.
Yeah. And so, it even comes down to, are there valid fears? Like, should I be afraid of snakes? And you say, there's nothing wrong with that, so I'll keep that. You don't see a problem with being afraid of snakes. You think that's a good thing to be afraid of snakes. And so you decide that, in many cases, that fears are actually acceptable. Right? And so there's a point at which we don't try to remove our fears or address our fears. We just say that is an acceptable fear. There's an acceptable fear with regards to loss of money, an acceptable fear to not having health care, an acceptable fear to losing your job, and, it's all acceptable. Don't bother me. Don't bother me if I'm afraid of this. Totally normal. I will react out of fear when it's necessary to protect those things that I'm looking for to keep. But if they're offering any opportunity for fear, you got to wonder, how useful is something that can chain you that way to your life? And, you can argue that all day. You can argue every little semantic, every little experience. Like, yeah, I should be afraid of my job, but I need my job. I need my job, for A, B, and C. And, so many people go through living their lives in this state of not feeling as complete because they have these limitations that they actually agree to, and they say, there's no reason to get over my fear of work. I'll just deal with it. And so they actually ground the experience of a lower vibration, right? Actually ground this reality, and they accept it. They say, fine, this is okay. Everybody seems to be fine with this. And so we look around ourselves sometimes to determine what's useful to be grounded or not because we want to fit into society,
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you sort of place the fear as a limitation that you're going to be willing to live with. And, people don't realize how many of these that they've actually got planted in their lives that limit their movement and experience in day-to-day life. And, and most people don't feel the need to wake up to these sorts of realizations either. Because, if everyone is moving along with these common fears and no one has figured out apparently the next best thing as a society, well then we should be living the most evolved form of the best thing at every moment. And so they assume that society is at its peak and that all the social fears that we have, or accepted fears as a society that we have, are perfectly fine and are probably in the best place that they could be, right? But you get the people from the 60s and the 70s saying, oh, no, there's so much more out there. There's so much better out there when you reduce your limitations, reduce your fears, and put those aside. And the controllers really can't function with people who are too free, actually. They really can't, they got to have some chains on you. Otherwise, there's no way to direct your energy in such a way that would benefit, the harvest.
Well, I think people in general, a lot of times, they feel powerless. Like who am I? How can I make a difference? How can I make a change? How can I prevent this calamity that's about to befall me? Because I have no control over X, Y, and Z of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because they feel that way, they panic and they get into this state of like you said, they ground that fear, into themselves. But one of the things that really, really helped me, find my own power is just understanding certain principles in the moment. If you feel powerless to change, X, Y, and Z of the situation, you always have the ability to change how you feel about X, Y, and Z. And by changing how you feel about X, Y, and Z, you've changed the whole situation.
It's your alignment.
Right. And I started, I started to really start, I became almost like Spock, but I would use logic,
mm-hmm.
Logically there really is no reason for me to be afraid in this moment right now. Because if you weren't okay in this moment right now, you wouldn't be afraid. If you weren't okay, because you're afraid of not being okay. So if you're afraid, then right in this moment, right now, you're okay.
You haven't moved into the experience that's crummy yet.
Exactly. And so, I'm like, because when you start to put the past and you project it in the future, because I remember this situation before and I know what happens next because I've been through this before, But there's one factor that a lot of people exclude from the whole equation, and that's themselves and their own state of being during the experience. How were you feeling back then? I was feeling just as panicked as I am right now. Well, maybe we can change that aspect, which is completely under your control, and see if it has a different effect. And once I started doing that, and right now, I'm okay. And as far as, as long as I can be okay right now, I have some time to think, and let's think about this logically. do I really know what's going to happen in the future? Anything could happen. I have and once I stopped, I let go of that projection, that creation. Once I let go and said, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what the future. Once I was able to let that go, then all of a sudden it became much, much easier. Opportunities and new ideas, things that were right in front of your face that you didn't see. Just, oh my goodness, how did I miss this? The answer was right in front of you, or it will come from completely someplace you had no consideration of. You never entered into your mind, and it's there. But it requires you to be in a certain state of allowance, and you can't be in fear in order to relax that and allow that energy to come to you.
Yeah. Can I offer a visual that I've been having recently? I hope I don't go too far with this, but it's a visual that I have of energy, and I've been wanting to put it in a way that I could describe how I see momentum, fear, grounding, who we really are, and where we don't want to be and where we do want to be. Imagine for a moment that you are a point of light in the ether. There's nothing there, but you are a point of light. And this is, pretty much the truth, actually. And what you have is an understanding that you are a fragment of a greater light. You are a small light, and you're a part of a bigger light. But the bigger light, we'll just call it the sun. We introduce the sun to the visualization. The sun is who you really are, a great ball of light, a fantastically huge ball of light. And what feels really good is to reunite with that great big ball of light and become a bigger light, be a greater awareness of being larger than what you are, being more than what you are. And all of us know that we have this inherent knowing that there is more to us, but we don't know exactly how to achieve it or how to reach it or how to access that potential. So what we do is we do what feels natural, which is to follow the light, move towards the light, move towards what feels good. And so we look for ways to attract ourselves to the sun or attract the sun to us. So we establish portals throughout our lives to bring us closer to who we are in a greater expanded way that's wonderful and all this. And so these portals are sort of like routes. And we establish like these lines of sight, and we say, I want to move closer, so I'm going to focus my attention 30 meters ahead of me in the direction of the sun, and then by putting my attention there, I can gravitate towards my focus. So wherever I look, I drift in that direction. And if I ever look behind me, well, then I'm looking away from my true nature, and I'm moving into more disconnect from my greater nature and potentiality. So there's this natural understanding that there is a moving forward towards your greater potential, and there's a natural understanding that you can move away from it. Now you can move parallel or perpendicular, and the different actions that we take don't necessarily draw us closer or move us further, but we're not, getting any closer in that moment. So these moments of neutrality that don't hold a lot of emotional momentum inside us. So when we are putting in thoughts that bring us joy and satisfaction and fulfillment, we know in our gut, and our gut is the compass, is the GPS letting us know we're moving in a path closer to our greater awareness. And when we feel fear and disgust and anger and these lower emotions, we know we're moving contrary to our life's path of reuniting with our greater awareness. Now, some people might say, well, my path isn't about reuniting with my greater awareness. Mine is just to play around. And that's fine. That's okay. But for the most part, the intent here is to evolve by gaining greater wisdom in every moment in your life for the sake of an improved life. And an improved life is moving towards that light where you are more whole, more happy, more joyous, more in connection, and are basically becoming more like a sun as you get closer. You're feeling the heat and the warmth of your greater nature. And this is the journey from being, a fairly non-conscious element of energy to a more conscious element of energy. It's like, how close is a stone to becoming like God in terms of conscious awareness and capability? Actually, a stone is already like God. But what we have relative to a stone is we are closer to God in the way that we have God's abilities to create, manifest, and transform our surroundings. So I don't want to say, a rock is inert. It has its own creational reality. But for the most part, it's those that are conscious on the earth that are going through this journey of wanting to have greater empowerment within themselves, which is, bringing in energy, drawing energy into you. That's how some people refer to it. Or raising your vibration, becoming a brighter light sort of element instead of becoming a denser, darker energy or a slower moving energy. We want to be a faster moving energy. We always want to move in the direction where our wavelength is moving more rapidly. And light is a very, very rapid wave, and darkness is the contrary to it. And so by paying attention to our inner momentum towards our greater intent to achieve greater oneness, we discover other lights also gravitating towards the sun sort of element, and we see others on this journey as well, and so we help them out. We offer our light to brighten theirs, or in some cases we take a path or a course that others begin to follow. They follow our light, and so they sort of follow us along our path. And so there's these grouping up of these lights together and getting together in groups or following those that are particularly bright within our vicinity. And these might be like gurus, or these might be groups that have wonderful information that make you feel good. It could be any of these types. And you'll note that the polarity on the other end, say the sun is on one side and then there's the non-sun, there's the void on the other end. You might think that the void, is not as powerful as the sun, but it is actually just as powerful. The sun is closer to who we really are, and the void is sort of like the antithesis to what we are. But it's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's something that is in a position where we don't understand it and we don't know how to work with it. But we know how to work with energy and not so much the lack of energy. When we speak to the controllers of the Cabal, we speak to the people who are sort of running the show, they're further back behind us, and they're trying to attract us backwards. They're trying to get us to look behind us so that we move back in their direction. They're sort of like representing the void, or I don't want to say the dark side. I don't like using that, but they represent the non-light nature. And we can join them if we want. If we want, we can go all the way into that point, but if you keep going in that direction, your light will diminish in terms of its support from the sun on the other end of the spectrum, and that light will diminish to the point where you no longer hold a common point of awareness and consciousness. It's like you'd become like a stone or a rock. You'd be more automated. You'd be less less capable of choice. And as you become less capable of a choice, you may recognize what it is to be an automaton per your limitations that you have in your life. The controllers, what are they doing? They're placing more limits so that you are less of an expressive, choice-filled being. And they don't want you to lose all your light because, in fact, the whole point of them attracting you to the dark end is so that they can move forward and gain light through you. It's like they're attracted to the light in you and they pull it out. And they also don't want you to get too close to them because then you'd have not enough useful light. So they want to keep you in this certain space that's sort of like a magnetic harmony between the sun and the void. They want to keep you in this middle space because under that environment you don't completely lose your light, but you're very accessible for them to draw off of you, for that to draw off of you.
Well, there's a misconception from both of those parties in that situation that you just described, Julien. There's a misconception that they need power external from themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, they look at, because it's in the way that we experience it, and we experience it in the way that we believe, the way that we perceive reality. You know, and I gotta give props to Michael Monk on this because he's dead on right about this. It's just the opposite. We look at things to focus on, right? In order to draw out our energy, we focus on a particular person, and the love pours out of us. It's not coming from that person. You know, that person has become our focus, and we're pouring the love, and it's coming from an internal source. You know, when we look at the sun, we think that we're receiving energy from the sun.
We do. And
we do.
I'm not saying that we do receive energy directly from the sun, but what we're actually doing is we're connecting to a point at which in the, like when I point out the awareness that's not where you stand currently, as you move yourself to that point in awareness where you had your focus, like 30 feet in front of you, and you find yourself there, are you actually moving there in 3D space-time, or are you actually reharmonizing yourself with a position that is closer, therefore holding this light that the sun has within its field, that you're now sharing a higher light resonance? Right? So you don't actually, get energy from the sun. You just become closer with the sun in its nature by recognizing a point within the sun or within the light being or within whatever that we're attracted to. As we harmonize with that, does it come closer to us or do we come closer to it? It doesn't really matter. We're coming to a point where your awareness is now in the it that you were focusing on.
Well, the point I was the point I was trying to make is that we have access to an infinite amount of energy within ourselves. And when you understand that you can tap into that source, then there is no more need for competition. There is no need for any of those things. There's no need to externalize, your sustenance. There's no need to do that because you understand that you have an unlimited supply within you. And it's directly accessible. And once you start recognizing that it's all coming from you, that you're projecting it all, then suddenly a lot of people think that would find that frightening. For me, it's very, very comforting. It's very, very comforting because now I understand how it works, and now I can start to exercise control.
There's no walls outside you that you need to climb over.
Right. And it's a great responsibility at the same time. But it's only in accepting that responsibility, and this is another thing that I think people have a hard time dealing with, accepting the responsibility of their creation. You're responsible for what you're experiencing. you're in the state and in that space, because of the choices and the vibration that you're holding. And a lot of times...
It's not actually the cabal.
Yeah.
It's not actually them. It's almost like, should you not know it, you're agreeing to it.
Exactly.
And that's why they need to be sneaky, right? If they just said, look, I'm going to control you and you're just going to play ball, you'd be like, screw that, I'm going over here. So they don't tell you. Their whole idea is that they really should not be telling you that they're screwing you, right? And what they do is they think that this is an okay game, because what they do is they put signs out that say, I did tell you I was going to control you. You just agreed to it. And so they assume by putting out all these occult symbologies that you would get it, right? They actually gave us the route and the means to discover what's really going on. You might not think so, but there are lots and lots of signs that are left out in the open.
Oh, right.
You know that you are agreeing, right?
It's right in front of, even in our language,
yeah.
Julien. Even in our language, there's certain words that if you took them apart and you understood what they meant, like govern meant, right? Control the mind.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
And it's right in front of you, but you don't see it because you're not thinking about it. And a lot of these things are, once you start to become aware, it jumps out at you, and you're like, whoa, how did I not see that before? Because you were focused on what they had you focused on, whatever the TV told you.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I used to play Monopoly with my older brothers. No offense, older brothers, if you're listening to this. But when I was young, they would win every time, and I just couldn't stand it. They would beat me at Monopoly, and they're just like, you suck. I'm like, what is this? This is not a fair game. This is not equal, right? Because obviously they knew how the game was played. They knew how it worked, and I didn't know the nuances, and so they had a complete advantage over me. And you must know that at the high tiers of the Cabal system, they understand the way things work. They really do. And just as, as if a psychic can take someone who doesn't know anything, to the cleaners, because of their having a more expanded awareness, they do the same thing. And they say, well, no, the rules say right here, you should have read the rules. Well, I'm not old enough to read yet. How am I supposed to know what the rules are? It's not fair. So you got to educate yourself to a certain degree on what are the rules and how do things work, right? Before you can play the game at an equal level.
Right.
And
they will know if you know.
Oh, yeah. And they don't like us knowing. And that's why the game is coming apart, especially when it comes to understanding of energy.
Exactly.
Right? All these UCC codes and laws and all these things, it proves when you look into it that, money isn't anything besides the value we assign to it. It's monopoly.
Yep. Right?
Monopoly money. Within the game, we're playing with monopoly money. If they were to say so because of their understanding, we could walk into a grocery store tomorrow and they would be working with monopoly money, and we'd have no other choice but to use monopoly money. I'm kidding around here, but that's the point of them understanding what they're capable of. Once we know what we're capable of, we no longer have to play the game the way that they have allowed it, or we can play the game the way they set it up and be on equal footing. But I'm more interested in just leaving them behind, to be honest. I'd say there's better games out here. You've won this one. Let's move on. Let's start a new game together on equal footing here moving forward. That's what I would like to see.
Well, I think we're seeing it. I think it's we're in the process. We're in the transitioning.
You got me there.
Yeah, it was corny, but it's still.
Sometime, maybe I'll set up a recording separate from the show because it might take a while, where I'd like to go through these movies that spell everything out. You know, movies that have lots of good messages in them. We could say The Matrix. There's lots of good,
The Matrix.
Good data in there. Play it, pause it, or and speak to each moment and what is really going on. Because a lot of these movies, they're disclosure. They are actually disclosure. They're an agreement to say, no, we told you what the rules were. Is in this movie. Didn't you see it? This is, we told you this is happening. This should have woken you up. And so they do it just the point where they actually don't think it's enough to wake you up, though. They put it out just in such a fashion that it's like, to the 5-year-old playing Monopoly. Well, I don't know what this word is. You're going to have to figure that word out, But, it says right here, you owe me money, So it's always like just outside of reach. But what's happened recently and in this momentum that humanity is moving in the direction of, we're getting the message. We're seeing what's going on, and we're calling them out. We're saying, okay, guys, jig is up. Get out of town.
Yeah. I love that. You just mentioned one of my all-time favorite movies, The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
There is a documentary out there where they take apart The Matrix, and it's in 3 parts, and they really, really go into depth, and I can't remember who did it.
Is it on, YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can find it. But it really, really shows exactly all of the rules of the game. It explains everything. And it's all in there, and it's part of our story.
Mm.
This is our story. Star Wars.
Yeah, there's actually too much in Star Wars to get into, but there is so much.
So much.
That is actually, it's like, okay, Star Wars is a fantasy world, right? Science fiction world. Well, guess what? That world tells our world the way it really is.
Yep.
It's like that's more real. In the lives that we live now, outside of the Star Wars realm, we're in the illusion. We're in the fantasy compared to how it really is. Really trippy when it's when you get to see the world the way it actually is, and all this.
The Wizard of Oz. All of these, there's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
And that's why we also love them too.
Yeah.
Because it's inherent within us to know this.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is that truth, right? It draws our awareness to it, like the symbology I had before with regards to being attracted to the light of greater awareness of all that we are. It draws us closer to the truth.
Yep. And we're in all of these stories. We're in the last scene.
Oh yeah, no, it's how do you explain it? There's okay. I can only explain it from the point of view of where I stand now relative to where I have stood, right? And you've already spoken of that a lot. But if you look at, I guess the audience listening to this if you can look at your life, let's just say, 10 years ago, what were your motivations and how did you understand, your place in the world relative to now? It's like,
right now, everybody's laughing.
What the hell? What the hell? So, did you predict it right now? You probably thought the Earth was supposed to be a burnt-up crisp because of some apocalyptic moment.
So true.
So note, if something in terms that is going on can take you so much from where you were 10 years ago to where you are now, is that a non-factor type of momentum for the world? if something can fundamentally change you that much, how is it the rest of the world is not getting the memo? They are.
Yeah.
They're just not quite as excited to move on that path so quickly, right? And so they didn't burst through the illusion. They're kind of coasting along moment by moment, not aware of a lot of the factors that keep them from moving quickly. It's like, I got this shackle on my leg. Oh, well, I'll leave it there for now. It's not, preventing me from eating. It's not preventing me from owning a house and stuff. This shackle's okay. I'm good with this. I feel like I do have freedom. America is the land of the free. I'm free to move. Like, actually,
people
yeah.
people are getting the carpet of their reality ripped right from under their feet, left and right.
Yeah.
It's right now. I'm having a blast with it. I am having so much fun with all of this because all the people, all of a sudden, the conspiracy theorists were suddenly right. Now we're moving from being conspiracy theorists to being, visionaries, and because all of the things that those who were what do they say? If you're one step ahead of the game, you're a genius. If you're two steps ahead of the game, you're a crackpot.
Oh, is that something?
Well, we've been crackpots for a long time, but now people, as evidence is starting to come out, and a lot of people are starting to, like what happened with the IRS. That whole, just got ripped right out from under people's feet. People who had this idea that marijuana should be used, such a terrible, and now the evidence is right there. Cures cancer, cures just about anything. Proven. That you can no longer hold on to the lies anymore.
Yeah.
Because the truth is becoming so evident. My government wouldn't do that. Wait a minute. They not only would they, but they did.
Sorry.
And here's the proof.
Yeah.
I saw on somebody put a post, and some man standing in front of the UN building with a chart explaining, and proving how the government, designed, manufactured in the laboratory the AIDS virus and what their plans to do for it.
Oh my God!
With all the official documentation, just standing there in front of the UN building. Now, when these things, if you're watching, you look at what's happening. People are waking up left and right. Children are challenging their teachers.
Yeah,
right?
It's really coming out kind of big flappy, isn't it?
On every level.
It's not moving slowly. 10 years ago, it was slow. 10 years ago, it was slow. But now it's like unbelievably quick.
I see, my neighbor, tell his 3-year-old, it's time to go to bed, and the 3-year-old looks up and says, why?
Well, that's what my kid says. That's exactly. I have that scenario living out right now.
But you see it on every level. Everybody is starting to question.
Yeah.
They're questioning the rules. They're questioning what. Why? Who says? Who are you? It's becoming a pandemic, and it's just wonderful. I'm not one of those people that I just can't be afraid about all of this, because right now I have popcorn and I can sit and watch the greatest show in the universe and participate in it.
Mhm.
It's
just sit there on your porch and watch it move around you. I could do that.
Yeah. And that just empowers you all the more. You know, it's like one of those right now, to me, it's becoming like one of those cartoons that you see where the ghost becomes so silly that in his trying to scare everybody, they're just cracking up and laughing.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, ah, and you just have to laugh at them, and then they're like, well, okay, now what do we do? They're not afraid. You know, now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like what was that? It happened like in Beetlejuice or something.
yeah.
It's like, really.
It gets and this is where I feel that we are, you know, and I'm not. I'm really excited about the future because once we get past all of this, so much, oh my goodness, so much is open, so many doors available, so many possibilities, you know. I
feel like energetically we're moving from a box of like 16 crayons to like an art store and having full access to everything. I mean, I'm not saying going to, 32 colors or 64 colors. I'm saying you have access to everything in this, art supply store now. Like that's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
And for myself, it's like I've stepped through that door and I can feel the limitless possibilities here. Right? And I don't even know what to do with it. I'm like, what do I make with this? What do I want to do? It's like the door's so far open, it's like my jaw's on the ground. I'm like, oh God, so much to do that I can do. You know how normally you'd be like, well, I could do this or I can do this, and that's all I got to choose from? There's like no such thing as that anymore.
Yeah.
Almost in anything now. Now it's like, I can pull down one of 100 different ways of approaching this.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like, lack of money things. It's like, how do I get from A to B? There's like 1,000,001 routes. I thought it was a straight line in the past. Now it's like I could take it, fast. I could take it slow. I could take it all the way around. I could take it these different ways. It's like play. It's really much more opportunity there to play. And none of it has me looking backwards. None of it requires me to be manipulative, requires me to restrict myself, causes me to use old paradigm thoughts, or, assume a certain degree of responsibility for those who don't want to wake up to my new ways of doing things. I don't have to wake up people to live my life in 100 different ways of doing things. I don't have to do that. I don't have that required responsibility. It's like, no, I have to do it, some people are like, I have to do it in a way so that I'm teaching somebody while I'm doing it. No, you don't. You just go do it. If anybody sees you on the other side where the grass is green and think that's a great idea, you call them over, then let them know how it happened.
Hey, Julien, we're about at the top of the hour. We're going to take a little break. And
sounds good.
Once we get back on the other side, we'll start to get to some of our questions and some of our callers. So
sounds good.
We'll see you in just a few. Go get a coffee or do whatever you got to do, smoke. We'll be back. Welcome back. Julien, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry. Couldn't find that unmute button.
So, we wanted to get to some of the questions that we've been receiving.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions from the Cosmic Room and from other locations, and I thought I'd take an opportunity to share what I thought on them, whether they're, outright answers or just where I'm coming from. Let's see here. I've got them in the chat space. First one I'll read out. The protectors of the One People have ordered the TV networks to be cut in on and carry the educational video material that has already been prepared. It's in the initiation document. What do we have to do to get this on TV worldwide and get the UV exchange going? Well, let's talk about specifically the educational material for television. I'm wondering if it's necessary. I think a lot of people do think it's necessary, and because it would be a high impact scenario to have that data showed on television in particular. But it really comes down to each individual coming into alignment with the data themselves. It's a very personal journey to reconcile data, and to be in a position where that data must come from someone else really does not allow you to sort of reconcile it as well. You're still in control of the person giving you the information. So under the scenario of disseminating information, it can always be tainted. It could always be incomplete. It could always be, information that makes things worse in some cases. And you're wondering, well, if it's already been created and somebody's already agreed that it's good data, we could just go on their word for it? Well, through this experience, there's been a lot of data that's like facts, right? Like the IRS and LIBOR and all sorts of things that should wake people up. That sort of data, I think, is going to come about in its own way in time. Sort of like we can't not talk about it anymore. If we want to talk to, taking over a television station and actually, blasting the truth on it, don't expect that, that's something that you need to start doing is, run up to the radio station and take it over and get this stuff broadcast. It's not going to happen that way. It's going to happen in the most organic, comfortable way that society can handle it. And you're wondering, well, why does that have to be comfortable? This is, tough knocks. A lot of us know that we've been through hell holding on to this data and being criticized, and we know how tough people are going to handle. It's going to be really, really tough knocks for a lot of people. And I would say, the best way for this information to get reconciled with people is on a one-to-one basis. Because if we let the television be the grounder of the new data, then we're still giving our control over the media to the medium of the television. And at any point, anyone can decide to take charge and share the information in the way that they want to share it, right? It's kind of like you're at the whim of the news reporter's opinion and perspective and slant. Whereas, if you hear it from your best friend or your husband or your wife, you understand exactly, where they're coming from, and it can't be anything more than their point of view. And those types of people usually have more of an influence over you than the television does anyways. You see, it's a greater impact way of having the energy being reconciled in a short manner of time and the most natural way. So that's my opinion. Do I know if it's just going to happen? I don't know. I can't say. It may, still be a really good idea for people that want to see it. It may not be. But all I can say is if you want to make that happen, then start imagining it. Start calling up news stations and seeing what it takes for them to do this. Be the action itself. I think some people are making assumptions that, the Pentagon is going to do this and there's going to be somebody doing executive orders to make this happen. not going to happen until we're ready to imagine it happening exactly how we wish it to be. It may not be all physical hands-on to make it happen, but it'll happen in the way that suits the best. And I'm just telling you, for me, the television medium doesn't suit me the best. But that's simply my opinion. Do you have an opinion on that, Bob?
Well, I look at it as a lot of the structure, the false structure that we've looked up to before is basically collapsing upon itself. It's one of those things where the lies and the illusion will crumble. And when the illusion crumbles, all that's left is the truth.
Right.
It's I see it more that way. That you don't really have to necessarily do anything, other than allow the structure to collapse as it is. It's exposing itself. Television's becoming laughable. And they are being laughed at. I mean, if you watch The Daily Show, how they exposed CNN, that the media it's just all made up. And I think we're at the point where, even despite ourselves, it would happen anyway. That's my opinion.
Hold on, I was muted. I think it's gonna be more holistic and happen easier than you might realize. Organic is typically the way things happen anyhow. Organic is the route that we're headed for the greatest degree of comfort. Staged and constructed is kind of the way of the past, right? It's trying to manipulate things into the best way possible. It's more like moment to moment is where it's most effective.
Right.
So, if someone does feel particularly empowered to do something in terms of taking action, they'll find that the opportunities are presenting themselves for them. Hold on, you have to give me just a moment. My daughter needs me for just a moment.
No problem. Like I said, it's an allowance. This is a very feminine, a more feminine approach. It's the masculine to project, to try to make something happen, and it's the feminine approach, towards allowance. And we're more operating, that allowance is becoming, our mode of operating, and it's a much different approach. It's internal, it's an invitation to something better, and allowing that to naturally unfold, because when you allow, you don't need to promote. It just
correct, yeah. It's hard to explain acting naturally when everything is actually so unnatural around us.
Yeah. So
it's a tricky one, but I did want to answer the second part of the question, which is regards to how do we bring the UV out, the IUV. That's entirely personal. I'd like to say that, there should be things that we can do to make it more accessible publicly, but I don't know what they are. All I know is that you be yourself and you feel and do what works for you in terms of your level of understanding and development through the the unlimited value that you are. So that journey is quite personal, and I think, we can do things like share the knowledge of that with others that we feel might be close to understanding that. We can find groups and begin to discover what that means, as a collective or as a group. So, discussions really probably are already happening here, but for those who, are wondering what's next, that's definitely the direction that I would take in sharing, what I felt, explaining, true value for what it is, getting people to understand where true value truly lies. And, you start with those that are close to you. You don't have to talk about dismantling the money system. You don't have to talk about, New World Order or Old World Order or Cabal or anything like that. You could just express the truth of the unlimited universal value that is inherent to all of us. And if they get it, well, then they won't have too much trouble when people who have specific skills bring in tools to make that more readily available. I don't want to speak specifically to Project 13 because I'm not working on it. I think there's a lot of data in other places to speak to that. But it's only going to be a tool. You don't need it in order to do everything that Project 13 makes possible. So there will be many tools as this comes out.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, it's going to expand. They're going to develop. They're going to be better. Project 13 is like there's going to be something akin to like the first Apple computer compared to what we have now, and it won't even really take long. It's really going to be so sophisticated in a matter of just a couple of years that it's going to be as if you bought a crappy Apple II or maybe the original Apple computer and having access to be able to do fantastic things with it like you hadn't before. But, now we have so much more potential to take that and draw it out. Not that we need that complicated technology to access, because the only technology we can develop is what is something that we have inherent within us to do. Now you're wondering, are we human computers? We actually are.
Yeah.
That's where the illusion, where you say, no, I need a tool. I can't do what a computer can do. Well, you can.
Yes, you can.
I'm so sorry. Computers are no accident. It's based on technology that our bodies are already computers, so to speak. Much better than the average computer, too. We just have been, clogging it up with crap that doesn't make it so effective in terms of its limitless possibilities.
I'll tell you, and I can speak to this from personal experience with telepathy. It is so much better than Skype. So
you can share pictures.
You can share everything.
Yeah.
You can share the feeling, the scent, the smell.
You know what? One of my actual really interesting points of view on telepathy in terms of its value is I'll be able to explore the world without having to learn the languages.
Yes.
And I'll be able to interact with people on a more profound level.
And you'll find that when you do it for a long period of time, it gets very, very hard to talk.
Yeah, you want to just shut up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we should just do that on this show, but it's like, it'll be kind of quiet for those not receiving,
It is amazing. Experiment with this, guys. Please experiment with this. It is possible. You can do it. All of you can. And when you start to experience it, it's incredible. It's really, really incredible.
Now, I have some tools. I accessed at one point some Akashic data on teaching telepathy, and they had these little tidbits and lessons. Actually, it was in order where there's things that you can do to prepare yourself to be telepathic and to begin discovering that you are telepathic and to develop your sensitivity in that domain. And I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to bring that information publicly or start working, but it's something that I'm going to definitely bring forward for people.
Well, you're always, you always have thoughts going through your head constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't shut it off, and that tells you you're receiving transmissions. Those are, you're literally listening to a whole bunch of channels within a certain bandwidth that you're operating in, and you're hearing a whole bunch of transmissions as well as the thoughts that you're generating. And a lot of people, well, how do you distinguish one from the other? And a young man, telepathically told me, "Stupid, your thoughts are in your voice." And I was like, "Oh, that's..." Yeah. And I never realized, I never, your thoughts are in your voice. And I stopped and I started listening to my thoughts, and I was like, wow, there's a whole lot of other voices in there.
Yeah, no doubt. And where practice comes into play is taking the moment to sort of, feel each thought more specifically. Like take each thought more seriously in terms of the data. And sometimes it doesn't matter where the information comes from. It's just information that is relevant to the moment. And you're going to find out that a lot of the data that goes through the mind speak is pre-programmed information. It's kind of like, when your mind goes crazy or whatever, or you seem to have lost your head, or you're wondering why you should believe certain things. And it's like once you take your mind more seriously, the information becomes clearer and sort of takes you more seriously.
And if you think of yourself in that way, that your mind is like a shortwave radio transmitter receiver, right? And you can tune into specific questions, and say, what do we know about this? And pay attention. Pay attention. Focus on that question. Hold it in your mind and ask, what is known about this particular question, right? And tune into the thoughts. Certain things will start when you're listening. I go into a listening mode, which basically you just kind of move into neutral and you're listening. I'm waiting for something to come up, and pay attention not just to what's going on inside your head and what's going on inside, but pay attention to everything that's going on around you. You may hear something on the radio or on television.
Just a couple words in mid-sentence, yeah.
Right. In the middle of a sentence that answers your question.
And you might just happen to glance at a couple words on the back of a cereal box.
Yes.
And you're wondering, that's benign. Everything is benign.
It can be easily dismissed.
Everything's
all the
data.
time. But
now, obviously, stating a specific question and intention does allow you to put the data that comes across your view screen or your senses into a greater context per the question,
yep.
Right? So the question, and the more well-formed it is, the easier it will be able to see the synchronistic data that comes into your awareness. But it does not take long. And eventually you'll get to even trusting the thoughts in your head and begin accessing Akashic very, very quickly. Especially when it gives you data that you would have never known, and you find that it perfectly fits.
It fits. And you'll get validation.
It's immensely satisfying.
It's so, and once
and if you don't think that you can do it, well then you're just, it's a closed book to your potential. That's it. you know?
And it's once you start to play with this and you get it to work and you start to see, you can tune into almost anything, and it becomes better, so much better than Google. Although Google's, you know, because you can trust this information because it's, what's the word? It's
well, I find sometimes
it's coming from within.
Sometimes the information is more correct than Google.
Yes.
Or Wikipedia, because it's specific to the way you would understand it where you are.
Exactly.
Right? It's like custom tailored answers. Right?
Exactly.
And that's why sometimes when I am deciphering information for someone else, the data is really meant for their head.
Yep.
And I like trying to interpret it in ways, if it was in their head, it would come more easily.
Right.
So it's like, why try to hear it from the outside when you can hear it from your own head? It's like, why should I be a psychic when you're psychic and you don't know it yet?
And you know, oh goodness, I'm almost to tears right now. Like, I to have this conversation. This is stuff that I really, really want to talk about. Like, this is
okay. Well,
this is the real technology, you know, to be able to and not sound like you are insane.
There's so much potential within understanding data that you have access to that traditionally we have not known, right? Traditionally we have not understood. But I'm going to tell you, it at the beginning, for me, it took a large degree of developing trust with it.
Yes.
Right? I didn't get it in one afternoon. It wasn't like, you know what? I want to know what the gas price is going to be when I get to the gas station. I want to be correct. Right? And then I get there and it's not what I thought it would be. Now, that's it. It doesn't work. You know? It doesn't come that easily and that quickly. You sort of have to develop your confidence in it. Now I can tell what the gas price is going to be. I can even figure out which gas station is going to be best on my route home. So I don't even have to check. I just know inherently what, and they're different. Sometimes one gas station is better than the other. I'm sure you've done this thing where you happen to wonder what the time is, and then you know exactly what the time is. Or someone asks you, and you're like, not more than like a minute off. Mm-hmm. You're like, well, by my watch, it might be incorrect. By this guy's watch, it's not. It's like not quite 100%. But I've done things where someone has asked me to count a second and see how close I come to counting a second. Not sure you can count in your head, right? But I don't even have to count anymore. I can just wait. I'll be like, that was 1 minute. That was 60 seconds. I know exactly how long a minute is. I can feel it. There's like a signal in me that says, say it now.
Yeah.
Right?
And each of you will get, I imagine each of you will get different signals, but it will be something that you recognize, and you tune into it, and you'll, and once you start to trust it, it becomes more.
Well, you nearly pee your pants is what happened to me. It's there are some really mind-blowing things that begin to happen. I mean, I could share them, but one of the things that helped me make the transition as well to trusting the guidance or the information that I was asking and trying to receive is I started with a dowser. I had a friend who had a dowser. If you don't know what a dowser is, it's basically a tool that can give you yes/no answers. Mm-hmm. Little Ouija board-ish kind of thing. Anyhow, when the responses came, I realized that that intelligence does exist to be disseminated. And when I got to a point where I knew what the dowser was going to answer, like inherently I knew what it was about to do. in response to the question, but because it usually takes a minute to a second to warm up to the answer actually presenting itself in the tool, I was like, that's it. I actually already have access to the answer. I don't need this anymore. And so that's a fine starting point for some.
And in order to make these tools work, you for me, this is how it works. You find that neutral space. There's a neutral space, and that's the only way I can describe it, where you're in this stillness. You're not projecting or you're a neutral space. Do you know what I'm talking about, Julien?
Well, some people liken it to that moment of meditation where you're in no thought sort of space.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, right, is because if you have any momentum in your thought or your state of mind, well, then you're projecting the answer. You're tinting the answer. You're looking through stained glass windows.
Yeah, it's a drifting. Like you allow yourself to float and drift, and you're not just it is a meditative state,
So if you were to say, I want this answer and I want it now because I'm pissed, you're guaranteed to get an answer that will suck.
Yeah.
You'll get an answer, but it will suck because that's your state of mind. And that's, you're forcing something that you can only assume a limited solution.
Right.
Anyhow.
You're going to find that you get the answers that if you want, you get the answers that you're emotionally in tuned with. It can be tainted. You need to find that neutral space. And sometimes you may need help. If you can connect with someone else, to find that neutral space, or if you listen to a meditation or some music, but get into that space, and you'll know where it is, where you're just drifting and you're not projecting any thought in one positive or negative, I don't care what the answer is, I don't have an attachment, and
I'm open to any possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
We're coming up to our last 20 minutes. We want to get some calls, Julien, because we do have a few on the line.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's start with area code 561. Area code 561?
Hey, guys. It's Patty in Florida. Hello.
Hello, Patty.
Hi.
Hi. I'm the one who called in the last few minutes of last week's show and yacked all the way to the end nonstop. Sorry about that.
That's quite fine.
I'm going to speak a little more slowly this week. Love the show. Absolutely love the show. I tend to listen to them a couple of times just so I can get it all. Julien, I love your update yesterday too. It's just so full of information. And I'm really glad, Bob and Julien, that you guys are talking about fear. I do agree with so much of what you're saying, everything that what you're saying, and I had a question about fear, and I had a comment about Julien, I'll just start with a comment. The last few times that I've listened to you, you've referenced a little bit about wishing you were a psychic because it would have somehow more validity than what you do. And I've been pondering those thoughts and those words, and then it occurred to me while I was listening to the show today that psychics and mediums, and not to disrespect them, I know quite a few, but they're kind of almost old paradigm energy workers, and you're a new paradigm energy worker where you have no mediation. There's no tarot cards, no tea leaves. It's like direct energy reading, unmediated from any of that, those old tools. I associate them with old tools, almost like the religions of old, and now we're moving into kind of just a brand new paradigm, and you're kind of, and it must feel a little weird. I mean, you're just kind of it might seem like you're out there flailing about.
Yeah,
but
I assumed I was an ordinary person my whole life.
Yeah.
And through Michael, I really gained the confidence that everybody has access. Nobody is more special than another. They might just have particular contracts that turn on certain things a little ahead of others. That's all.
I agree, and sometimes though, the way many psychics and mediums, they kind of make a lot of money on it, or they use the gift for kind of a way of their livelihood, and I always kind of questioned that, it's a gift, so, or it's just something, is that something you should really be charging for or whatever? I'm not really sure, but, I always kind of felt kind of iffy about that. But I just wanted to share that with you because you had brought it up a couple times in the last couple of days.
I think specific to the idea that I might be offering in terms of, I wish I was like a real psychic or something. I'm aware that there are psychics out there that are fantastic. And I don't want to even call myself a psychic because I don't even think I'm in the realm of the skill that others have. But I don't want to hold myself away from that because you can always become more psychic. There's no finiteness to the amount that you can explore within yourself. Like
without limits, right?
Yeah. So what was your question that you had?
Well, okay. And I'll take your comments off air. But I've often wondered about when you were talking about fears earlier. It was such a great conversation. And thank you so much, you guys, for this. But, fears that come into a lifetime with you, that kind of present themselves when we're very, very young. And I know I've experienced that. I had some very strange behavior as a child, and I've talked to others who have had those kinds of experiences. And, we kind of acknowledge that there are fears that come into this lifetime from past lifetimes, and it's almost like so my I guess I just wanted to hear your thoughts about if we should handle those fears any differently than the ones we acquire in this lifetime. Is kind of a less of a sense of what the heck happened in a way, if they're memories from past. So I'm
going to take a chapter out of Andrew Bartz's point of view, because he's recently helped upgrade my understanding on a lot of things that really, really felt true and natural. Regarding the fears that come in through past lifetimes, I know it's going to sound icky for some, but that's not as natural and that's not as necessary at this point in time. In the past, it had its function for development within people, but at this point in time, we actually don't need fears. We're about to be given a space where limitless possibilities means limitless, and those that will not experience the limitlessness of the potentials will be those who have a lot of limitations within themselves via fears. So past lives, current lives, it doesn't matter. At this point, all are clearly and easily resolvable. I won't say easily. I'm not going to say that to some people because I know they're having a tough time with them. But it's a place and time right now that is a lot easier than it has been in the past. It's going to be much less challenging than it used to be. We're going to be helping each other a lot more, and through these developing awarenesses of our true nature, we'll be able to reconcile these fears more quickly, more easily, and with a lot more support from people outside us, in our local surroundings.
That's really that's. I mean, I imagine it's about healing and forgiveness and doing that both for what applies to this lifetime.
Well, a lot of fears have particular vibrations, and they all have different roles in terms of what they've done for you and what they've done to establish who you are today. And you're going to find that they're really just sort of restrictions that you have for yourself. And they're unconscious. You don't need to judge yourself over having had them in the first place. It's like, who shouldn't be afraid of snakes? Well, anybody can be afraid of snakes. Don't worry yourself over that. Don't worry yourself over you having a fear of lack of money or something. Just know that, no fear needs to be held on to at this point. And, the journey to reconcile the nature of how it has come or why it needs to persist. You don't even have to worry about where it came from sometimes. You just need to wonder why you still have it. And those will easily dissolve. And there's so many people that have gone through so many experiences and come out of their fears on many, many different subjects. And you'll find that if you want some help with a particular fear of yours, it will not take you long to attract to you the person who's gone through it and can speak to it from their point of view, which could be very helpful.
I've actually had that experience several times.
We're helping each other, yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned Thomas, by the way, Julien, and you had mentioned a show he does, and could you just say that again, because I'd like to listen to a little bit more of his stuff.
Thomas?
No. Is his name Andrew?
Andrew Bartis.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yes.
He's
Andrew.
prominent on Revolution Radio and on Wolf Spirit Radio, and you can easily find lots of archived material that he does. He's practically on the air every day for, anywhere between 2 and 6 hours, not typically on the weekend. So there's a vast amount of material that you can find archived on him. And although he has call-in rates and whatnot, he's, taking calls almost every day as well. Really, really fantastic person who puts, everything he has to offer out there for people on a day-by-day basis. So.
Well, thank you. It was. I heard him for the first time just the other day when you guys were on. So thank you so much.
I'm pretty sure he'll be on the Walking in Energy show this Sunday as well. So
wonderful.
If you want to line up your call and have a question for him, I'm sure that they might have that opportunity. I don't know if he'll take on personal questions. I know they're trying to cover the gamut and support each person in terms of a broader sense. So we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, I just like listening to him. It's really quite incredible.
I love the conversation I've had with him. I had a pretty good long one the other day, and we've agreed that we're going to work a lot more together.
Awesome.
So that could be us being on the air together. That could be us creating recordings or whatever. I'm not sure yet.
Wonderful news. Wonderful news. Well, I love you guys both. Thank you so much for what you do, and I'll continue. You're so welcome, Bob. I'm sure I'll call in again. Thank you.
That's fine.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We've also got, I think, Ginger on area code 808.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Hello.
And everyone listening.
Hi. How you doing?
I have really been enjoying you guys and all your contributing, so I want to thank you first. And I just wanted to really quickly, you spent the whole first hour basically talking about fear, and it is so important. And I've been really focused on it because no matter how much healing work I did on myself, starting back in 1982, I couldn't shake this feeling that the whole ground was coming out from under me when certain situations triggered it. And I finally had a kind of mysterious healing a few years ago, and I still have anxiety, but I'm not paralyzed by it anymore. And I now have a Kona Occupy Disclosure meetup group I started in early 2012, and I had to deal, and I've never done anything like that before, and I had people coming in that were really well-meaning, but they were so fear-based, and on the surface they would say this and that, but I had to finally say that they weren't a good match, and, aloha. So
it's funny.
it's hard. And now I put myself so far out there, I'm starting to get spies coming in and wanting to join. And the latest I just sent to Pete in the chat rooms is hilarious. It's this Caucasian male who's probably in his 40s, and he's dressed in a black suit. He's got the wide stance, legs, with his hands in his pocket, with a violet tie. And his name is Raphael Light Shine. He wants to become free from the darkness. I mean, So, my level of fear now is like, well, okay, so I know the game is rigged, and I feel like, I don't know if you guys ever saw Star Trek, the series where Q from the Q continuum is banished to learn some lessons, and he's, pops into Jean-Luc Picard's world, and continually poses games that Jean-Luc can never, no matter what he does, he can never get out of the situation, and he finally breaks down Q, essentially with his compassion for people and humans, and why, why humans are so special, because, Q saw them as being really disgusting and stupid. It's just classic. And and Jean-Luc, what great casting. I forget the name of the actor that plays Q, but it was just mind-blowingly perfect. And I never knew until I learned about the archonic at a subatomic level situation within creation that what was really going on here. So you guys are doing a really great job with that. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to add, and one more thing. Because people are always, the light workers saying, well, we all work really hard with our fears and becoming more aware. And, if I just can get to that place where I have no more fears or anxiety, then I'm home free, right? And I've just come to realize that, no, we are, as long as the whole archonic factor is here, and still influencing, then we're going to have some anxiety. But the whole trick is just to understand what's happening and try to keep it in check. So I know we're down to 4 minutes? Okay, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ginger. I think the idea of actually getting rid of fears is sometimes not as necessary as we make it out to be, because some things like being afraid of snakes, do you need to get rid of snakes? Well, I'm not experiencing snakes on an everyday basis. It's not such a big deal, right? It's not an everyday limitation, but there are things that I do experience that would be considered limitations day by day, and those I may wish to address at this time, and so I will, right? It's like if it's fundamentally in your way from in the way of your experience, well, then go ahead. In some cases, I have limitations that I actually choose to keep for the moment. I feel that it's not quite the right time to address. It's not like, go out and attack all your fears as quickly and as fast as you can. You can be quite inundated with a lot of scenarios through that experience and through those decisions. And I learned, not to take too big take a bite bigger than I could, chew on. Because, to say things like, I'm going to decide to be afraid of snakes, so tomorrow I'm going to go, handle a python or something. That might be too much of a leap, You got to, slowly reconcile it sometimes. It's a pace that has to be determined internally.
We're coming down to our last minute and a half, so...
Well, what you're saying, Julien, is the process that I had to go through, everybody's going through right now, and it takes time to take bite at a bite to digest the truth and find what is true for you. I mean, for me, I have truths that I can't prove still to anybody. And,
well, you know what, Ginger?
So
when you're okay, when you're okay with being not okay, that's a different vibration than being not okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, that's a fundamentally different space. Yes.
And knowing you have nothing left to lose.
Yep.
I mean, oh my God! When I first saw American Beauty, I was still living in Seattle, and it's on the big screen. I mean, I just wept because it was like, oh, whoever wrote this understands me. And everything.
Ginger, we're down to our last few seconds, Ginger. So I want to say
I'll let you go.
to those who are in the listening on live, please tune in next week. We'll be back at the same time. And join us on 5dmedianetwork.com if you want to listen to the archives or you want to share it with your friends. And for all of you who are on the line, I think we just lost the rest of the audience. But for all of you who are on the line, we've got 2 more callers, I think. Do we want to stay on to get the last 2 callers? Julien?
Yeah.
We'll get the last 2 callers.
Guys.
No problem, Ginger. And call back again. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
And we'll get the last 2 callers, and those of you who are listening, you'll be able to hear. And those who got dropped off, they can't hear me now anyway, so you'll have to pick it up on the archive. All right. We have area code 347.
Well, hello there, my good special friend.
Hello, who do we have?
It's the Flo.
Flo.
Oh, Flo. Awesome.
How are we? Wonderful to hear you guys on another day. I've been in kind of a Pittsville these last couple of days. I went and tried to make a purchase, and all these wonderful, horrible, and weird and wonderful things happened. And my spirits have been up and down, but mostly my anger has been very high. I've been blowing up on people lately. I like to use you guys as therapy today, just to talk to you about like these harvestings and all the fear. Definitely helped me today. The fear, talk about the fear and being okay with not being okay. I feel that now, and I'm like, wow, okay. So if I'm I thought about this recently, and I was like, okay. So forget about it. Why go put my energy into signing these paperworks or absolving my debt or whatever or even worrying about somebody putting a lien on some property that I have property in my name and stuff, and if somebody wants to come and take it, I don't care, but my family cares because like their family put it into my hands to take good care of it and whatnot, which is kind of stupid because like we're all a family on this earth. And, like, whose is what and where's his wife and how. So I'd like to just forget about it. But, like, that brings me fear in that my family is going to look at me like, oh, you're a bum and you don't want to work and you don't want to do anything. Don't you know you need money to survive? And I'm like, shut up, guys. Like, just leave me alone and let me just stand on my head if I want to. Like, geez, Louise Francis, what's the problem? Like, I know I get a little bit worked up when I start to, explain things. So that's one thing that I'm working on and trying to, see. That's part of my vocabulary that I'm getting rid of. I'm getting in order my mind and my priorities, these things that I'm focusing on, making sure that they're, the right things that I need to do, making sure that they're important, so that, I can grow from them or I can make some sort of progress instead of just being a conspiracy theorist stuck in the wind trying to figure out how to walk backwards. And it's like, what? So I don't know, guys. I'm stuck in the whirlwind, lost in the whirlwind, 96 Bonnie and Clyde, me and my daughter. Come on.
So,
I love you guys,
Flo,
by the way.
you know how you were speaking to your family having an opinion on the way you do things? That is, our family are generally some of the elements in our lives that ground us the most, right? Because we don't want to disturb the fabric of the relationships that we've had for so long and that we're so fond of, right?
True that.
But most of the time when it comes to true reconciliation, even with, psychology and therapy sessions, what the therapist is doing, what they will do is they'll say, can you allow this person to be his extreme self and still love him? So it's sort of like, can your family accept you for who you are? If you tell them that you wish to be who you're going to be, and literally give them this ultimatum, will you continue to love me if I'm this way? Because what you're doing is you're bringing to the forefront what you actually are intending. You want to be you, and you want the relationship that you have with them in love. Does that mean that you have to agree on everything? I think most family members have figured out they don't have to agree on everything. And if there's issues with regards to this land title or whatever, you say, well, maybe one of you would prefer running this land title because, it's just not something that is flowing with me for now, And so on an individual basis, you just bring it out. You say, let's work with what we got that's working. The things that we don't work, can we agree, to keep them at arm's distance and not necessarily attack each other on it? Can we agree to this? And if they say no, well, then you get into the specifics of trying to reconcile why you must be the way you are and why he must be the way he is or she is. And then, most of the time, the fastest way is going to come down to, can you let me be who I wish to be and who I feel that I am? And if they're almost always going to say okay with it, especially family members, then yeah, of course, I must let you be who you are. It's like, well, then good. I'll try not to step on your toes. And you try not to step on my toes, and we'll hug each other at every opportunity we can get.
True that.
So family issues is always, basically the peak of anxiety for a lot of people. Like, what should I be doing?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
I'd be doing what they tell me to do.
It's easy to just say to them. Yeah, I mean, it sounds easy to just say, oh, yeah, if you guys really love me, you would let me be me. You know what I'm saying? But then you look at somebody, in your perspective, as you look at somebody else who you look at, and then you say, wow, I don't think that they're doing the right thing in life. Then you really don't have any foot to stand on when somebody looks at you the same way, like, oh, I don't think you're doing the right stuff in life. I'm like, what you mean? How do we decide?
Yeah.
What do we figure out?
That's what I was gonna point out to you, Flo. The only part of you that reacts, to them is the part of you that thinks that what they're saying might be true.
That if there are like 5% of you that feels that they're valid, that 5% will bother you.
Yep. And
it'll get big and big and bigger and bigger and bigger until it wells up into a point of anger, which is obvious. So take note of within yourself. It's like, don't just say, yeah, I deserve everything. Take it as like, why wouldn't I accept that I deserve to be who I am? And that's not a straightforward, answer for you particularly. It's a journey for yourself. What 5% of me is not okay with this? And so you figure it out. Why are you not okay with, being without a job or something? Is it because there's lots of reasons why that can be. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but that journey to discover what last lingering part makes you edgy over the subject is a journey that, is probably worth you taking if you're getting to this point in pent-up anxiety and anger over it. No, trust me, from a lot of things that you really have no attachment over, they don't bother you. If someone says, why don't you eat chocolate bars? Because I don't give a crap about chocolate bars. And you'd be like, well, everybody likes chocolate bars. Well, why don't you eat your chocolate bar? You'd be like, I don't even want to have this discussion. I really don't care about chocolate bars. You have no attachment. There's no 5% there, obviously. You know what I'm saying? That feeling, you'll know when you're detached from something or not. And the good thing is,
just the same
when you
I look at a lot of my friends. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well,
go ahead.
What I was saying is that the good thing is when you figure out what that last 5% reasoning is, because of that journey that you go in yourself to discover why you must be attached, before you truly become detached from the subject, you'll find that you'll have a really, really handy knowledge to support other people who are wondering why they feel that they can't handle other people calling them lazy or something. You'll have a really in-depth knowledge because you're basically going to study it within yourself. And from there, you can really offer a lot of guidance for others in the same position and make it go easier for them. Or you can do something else. You can find someone else who thinks, who you might think is lazy, even for yourself, and then you wonder, how is it you're okay with this? And then he'll tell you, and you're like, oh, yeah, you know what? I think now I'm cool being lazy, too. That sounds awesome, So you may find the guidance from someone else, but the most useful will mostly be within yourself.
Exactly. I really understand what you're saying, and that proves a real good point where, like I said, how do we deal with our own perspective, when it's turned back around upon us. And, geez, Louise Francis, it's so crazy. I don't really look at anything separate. Like, these, like, situations that, if you have a relationship with your parents, it's like literally the same exact situation you're having with someone over here. It's just kind of in a different light or, a different tweak, but it's just so similar.
That's even more useful because that same 5% is probably the same 5%. You'll find the answer to both of them in the same place. And so you can cross-examine them and maybe get a better idea of where to look, right?
Exactly. And then I look at you guys. I was going to say, I look at my friends in the truth movement, and I really refer to you guys and the things that you guys tell me about, how when you can barely talk to someone in your immediate family or your immediate circle, when you first come about this, truth or the awakening, and then you kind of have to find people outside of your circle who are on that new information or on that new wavelength. And then, the way definitions go, we're now part of a cult. Congratulations. Let's both high-five each other. But, I mean, like, that's just the way that our minds have taken shape. You know what I'm saying? Like, now they think we're going to go drink the Kool-Aid, but before they start to, judge me, they have to realize that I'm the same guy that they always knew. And the only reason I'm over here is because, I got something inside of me that you probably didn't see the whole time, that I was being who you thought I was. You see, because then it's just who you thought I was, not who I really was. And then maybe I was acting upon what you thought I was. And then I look on TV and acted upon what they told me I was. And then I read a book that told me I wasn't any of that. And
you know what, Flo?
A way that someone didn't like. So, yeah, it just goes on and on.
Once you get down to the, who you really are, even that's going to change.
Yeah.
Even that's going to change. So
it keeps getting deeper.
You literally need to become the flow, because that's what everyone is. You move into a flow, and that's the one constant in the universe: change. And
that energetic space is exactly what I was talking about. That is so true. This is why I chose my name, because I wanted to focus more. I wanted to be more, focused on things. If you guys ever, listen to anything I say, I'm never really just straight down the line. I kind of orbit these different tangents and just kind of come back around to this whole big flower of life, and it's crazy. But I want to be more precise, I want to be more just, I don't know, man. I look at other people and I say, wow, they got it together, man. And maybe if I had that just, discipline or that quality.
But right there, Flo.
Do just a little bit better.
Right there, Flo. When you start comparing yourself to other people, do you know why you're comparing? First off, you're comparing because you already.
It's that energetic space. There's a void, or there's something not there. I feel like
there's something behind it.
Mm-hmm.
When you start comparing yourself to other people outside of yourself, it always comes from a feeling of inadequacy. You compare because is there someone else that is where I'm at, or when your relationship to other people becomes an issue, that's when you compare. When you're wondering where do I fit in, it's a questioning of where do I fit in, and
yeah,
you fit in.
That's the only question anybody ever has in life. Like
exactly,
that's the only question ever.
And you fit in because you are, just as you are. And when you figure that out, Flo, when you figure out that you are your own standard, there is no comparison. How do you compare a screwdriver with a hammer? Well, they both are useful tools, right? But a screwdriver can't do what a hammer does.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that the screwdriver is not perfect for what it does.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And that was something that I struggled with that for a long time. Because I'm not a visual person, and I don't get a lot of the visual things. I don't see, paranormal. I'm a more feeling person, and I thought, well, because I'm not getting I must not be, as developed as X, Y, or Z person, and I would but I'm just not a visual person. And now, and once I was okay with it, then I started getting visuals. So, and it was, you just have to be okay with who you are. And the more okay you are with who you are, the more your tool, your talent becomes evident. And you begin to become powerful.
I mean, everything that we've been talking about, the OPBT, is exactly that. We forgot who we were. Now that we remember, we can stand in our eternal essence. Truth be told, I mean, that's that goes without saying. As me and you have been in these talks for so long, and then I sit here and I say, okay, wow, so cool. Now that me and you are, I mean, like now this whole week I've just been feeling kind of bad, so whatever. I moved past that, right? And I says, I'm back on, trying to be my eternal essence, but then, I kind of just go out into this world and then, like, no one, I mean, how do I even sit here and say this now? How do I live my life as the eternity that I am when, I'm just literally and without any difference in what our understanding of the word is, restricted. I'm restricted everywhere I go because of some innate eligibility that is fictional. You see what I mean? So what I would like to ask, about is there was a video, this guy named Jaguar or Jagamara, and he was like talking about being admiral of a piece of paper, and it's a ship. He can salvage the cargo and all this wonderful stuff that sounded really good. He's like, I'm postmaster general, and holy cornstarch, it was just so great. It sounded good, and I want to know more about that, driving without a driver's license, without insurance. I know this is not the show for that, though, and this is probably the place, but this is where my anger and my rage started to build because I couldn't figure out, the right route to take because, I'm
even
comparing
right
myself
there,
to
right
everyone.
there, Flo.
I'm looking around and I'm saying, where should I take my route? I don't know. Should I cut the universe out of this?
The universe was already answering your question. It was already and because you want to get past those limitations, the universe started to show you paths past those limitations. And that's not an accident that you came across that Jagamara video. So understand that it's working, that even with the perceived limitations that you saw, just the intention of being able to go past those limitations was already bringing you information on how to do it. And I would love to continue this conversation more, but we're already over time, and we still got one more call. But I would say to you
of course. That's why I said
you are already doing it, and Just allow yourself the space to have a bad day. Allow you know what? I'm gonna do like a priest. You are now absolved. Just be kind to yourself.
Bless you, Father.
Move past those perceived limitations, because that's all they are, and it's okay that they're there. Now that you're aware of them and you made the intent to move past them, you're going to move past those, and you'll still be able to do. You'll be able to do what you can do, what you want to do, with those limitations being removed. Follow your intuition. Follow that flow. You'll be fine.
Indeed.
Definitely. And yeah, I'm definitely hyped, guys. I appreciate you for, giving me a chance to vocalize what I have to ask you about today. And I mean, I definitely want to bring it up again, another time. If even we can talk about it offline, I'd love to talk about the Jagamar video with you a lot more, Bob, and Julien, of course, and anyone out there, in video world, radio land. If you'd love to have a chat with
and maybe
soon,
even Jagamar is listening, so he might contact.
Hey, Jagamar, please do. Hey, buddy, old pal. Yes, Jagamar, please do. Flowfocus@gmail.com.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have got one
more
call on the line. I'm leave your mic open, Flo, if you want to comment. Area code 267. Hello.
Hi, this is Andrew. How you guys doing?
I'm doing fine, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Good to hear. Hey, what's up, Julien? Yeah, I'm familiar with the video that Flo was just talking about, and it was an excellent video, and the guy clearly knew what he was talking about. And the one thing that struck me in it as well, he mentioned in there that it took him about 20 years to figure out what he knew. Now, that means he's definitely a resource for information. It also means that it takes quite a good amount of time to perfect these techniques, and we're only just learning to perfect them. People who have been doing this for 20 years are just learning to perfect them. And when I first kind of came into this Admiralty and UCC information, which is probably like late in 2010, I downloaded obscene amounts of videos, talks, books, all different documents that people have filed, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to become that, I'm going to be sovereign, I'm going to do all that. And I went through it, a pretty good amount of it, and then I was like, wow. I was like, it's going to take me at least a year of solid work to understand this backwards and forwards. Being honest with myself, because this was probably pretty close to December 21st, 2012, and it wasn't soon after that the OPPT came forward with their documentation, which was wonderful, and and that has since evolved into the IUV exchange, which I think, if I'm reading it right, it kind of puts us in a place where we don't have to worry about all that UCC, Admiralty law and all this, and it's worthwhile understanding, because we need to understand where we've come from. But I think what the basic message in flow, I think you actually kind of said this, of what the OPPT was doing, was saying, this is who we are, this is who we're definitely not, which is what you tried to make us, and now that we know what we be, are doing who we are, we expand with each other continually, forever and ever. And that's, I think, what we all just are ready to partake in, and we're still kind of, stuck in this third-dimensional earth, so to speak, where fears are still very real, and the great John Mayer actually has a good quote on fear. where he says, fear is a friend misunderstood, which I think is very valid because fear can really be, if you look at it objectively, just kind of like a motivator or an indicator. Julien mentioned before that your gut is kind of a compass as to what resonates and what doesn't, and what direction you need to be moving in. And fear is really kind of, you feel it in your gut. And it's a very definite feeling. So with all that said, I think a lot of it does come down to beliefs, unfortunately. And I have been checking out kind of like the Nasara news website and some of the postings on there and some of the people that kind of are within that, and I just see a lot of beliefs that are just really turning it into something that's almost false, and a lot of it is based on maybe like this Christian kind of underpinning, this Jesus kind of thing, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I feel like a lot of these people are really just looking for something that's going to support their beliefs so that they can be vindicated or justified. And I think that whatever this event is going to be, I mean, I just touched on 50 different subjects, but whatever this event is going to be, I think it needs to try to shatter some of these beliefs. And I think that would be a good starting place because there's so many beliefs that are just really, they are our shackles more than any other, group of people or archon beings or anything like that. And is there, this is a question now to Julien or Bob, is there a way to shatter these beliefs, whether it's via an event or whatever, a series of events or an internal thing? Is there a way for that to happen that's not devastating to a great number of people on this planet?
The only way that can happen, Andrew, is if it spontaneously happened internally within everyone.
Right.
Now, is there a way for everyone to have a spontaneous internal experience? Yes, there is a way.
Yeah, actually, Gaia wants me to tell you guys that it is supporting this more and more. Some decisions, at some point back, we got some bumps. Bumps are sort of like an expanded energy offered so that you can take notice of your surroundings and your reality, which is really just your box. Your reality is your box. It's your functional boundaries that you choose to live within. And so what Gaia does is gives you these bumps, and you may recognize or not recognize the bumps. If you're particularly energy sensitive, you do notice them. But they come in a couple of different formats, and they tend to basically affect everyone equally. Everyone gets a fair dosage. And these are going to continue to increase in intensity as they are necessary. They only show up when they're necessary. So if we have not received like major bumps that should make our ability to be aware of our surroundings and become a little bit more psychic be really obvious, that means that they're not necessary, that we're moving well on the path to freedom and the path to greater awareness on our own. So if there are not bumps, then we don't need to do them. The flow, the energy, the momentum is working. The bumps are just slightly, course correctional support mechanisms. And she's going to be there continually supporting us and offering us those opportunities as a unified whole. If there isn't an event in quotation marks, I feel that she'll be highly involved in that. But that energetic moment is going to come from way beyond even Gaia and our solar system. So although she makes her own decisions, she still receives energy from her greater aspects, which is the solar system, galaxy, the universe, and whatnot. So as a personality that I was just sharing, she was letting me know that she'll do planetary-wide stuff as needed. And if you really, really are begging for some support in terms of massive clarity within your awareness, then take some time in nature, because she will deliver it in spades. So interact with her on a very fundamental level. The Sasquatch people told me that one of the fastest, most amazing ways that we can do this for us as humans is to plant a sapling once a day. Now, this is an activity that will obviously require a certain amount of energy and engaging amount of time to make this happen and to do this. But through that process, not just the actual putting it in the ground and covering up the dirt, through the process, it'll demonstrate your willingness to receive the energy as well, and to receive the guidance that will awaken within in that space. So gardening is very useful as well, too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying gardening is also a fundamentally balancing development that seems to be, at least for me, much more profound and experienced than just getting food out of the ground or seeing beautiful flowers. It goes much deeper in terms of balancing out the elements within you that seem to be usurped by, nefarious elements and people.
I was going to
I definitely agree with that.
Go ahead, Flo.
I just wanted to just mention really quickly that I agree with that, in that part of my plan for, if you can even make a joke about it, quote unquote, global domination, to pass out like all these miniature portable greenhouses that you can like put in your room, maybe something like 4x4x4, maybe something real small, or even like something you can put on your roof, or something that you can hang outside of your window, something that will just change the way that we look at green things and the things that we eat and the way that we communicate with our nutrition. You see, I was thinking of having like a schedule or a procedure. Each area would get a certain type of, plants of, there's so many details to it, but I just wanted to say quickly that is so on point. Oh, goodness gracious. I agree. How about that? To just put it in 2 words, I agree.
Okay.
And that's especially valid, I would think, Flo, that idea in the city where people don't have necessarily backyards and gardens and things like that, at least not in majorly populated cities. They sure don't. So if they had, some type of plant vegetation in each apartment, I think that would probably help to change how we look at green things.
Yeah, I live in New York City. They have this farmer's market downtown that, comes out every week or 2 weeks or something, and that's cool. And I see that they got wheatgrass and everybody doing their thing, But, yeah, that would be, like, the coolest thing, to just look outside and see all these windowsills full of just all kinds of different colors, man, because everybody can do what they want to do or get in touch with somebody and coordinate. It's so much. It just gets so much bigger when there's not like a regulation going on. You can just walk outside and say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Let's do this.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I think we're going to call it an end of the show.
With one more question,
forward,
you had the brain. Andrew, go ahead. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
The only thing I was going to put forward
one more word before you go.
Was Julien mentioned earlier, he has kind of a list that he pulled from the Akashic of working on telepathy or, and different things like that. Just as an idea, and I'll pay my energy into the thought. I think it would be valid to have like a transitioning website, even if it's just a blogspot type thing, where you guys could post little tidbits like that more frequently than like a weekly radio show. And if you guys needed an admin to work that, to orchestrate that for you. I volunteer myself. It doesn't have to be me. It could be somebody else, but I'll put my energy up towards that.
Well, we are moving in that direction. My life is transitioning from the role that I used to take to the role that I'm moving into and becoming. And so step by step, week by week, these sorts of things are finding them easily coming about. And I'm not rushing it. I'm doing it as I feel. I'm opening up more time for myself to offer. I was truly inspired by finding Andrew Bartz's putting in, 30 to 50 hours a week, just speaking with people. And I know that I can do more, and I do want to do more. I'm constantly offered wonderful questions. I know we didn't get to complete the questions that I had on the list, but, in the moment, for this moment, I think some updates with Chris, I think that's working well for the moment. And I've been invited to be on a couple other shows, which I'll share later. And because I don't know exactly when they're scheduled to occur. And, I'm extending into the arena of, of blogs as well. But personally, I prefer the medium of communication. I know it doesn't go over well for people that only want to grab a piece of the data that I might be sharing, but people are also coming up wanting to transcribe material for me and offering their services there, so that might work as well. We'll see.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask, what was that song during the break there?
Yeah, I wanted to know that too.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, that was Open Our Eyes, and they were the same. That's the same group that did our intro. Yeah, this guy is he's wide awake.
What's the name of the group?
Open Our Eyes. Open Our Eyes.
Open and arise, those two words.
Yeah, if you look right at the description of the blog talk,
right.
There'll be a website that you can go to download some of this stuff.
Cool.
Okay,
can I share one thing? It'll take only 30 seconds. Bob, I'm going to share one more thing. One of the reasons why I'm not highly concerned in my personal life about GMO food is I actually reprogram the food before I eat it. All food that I eat, meat products, whatever, I offer extreme love as I'm ingesting it, and it's like every sip of water goes in with "I love you," "I'm so grateful," every moment as I eat, and that food turns into the best benefit in every taste and bite, and it really transforms in every moment. So whatever is actually, handicapping the food's nutrition or whatnot, totally does like a 180 for me. And I know the difference because I can not do that, and the food is much less effective supporting me. But when I do, it really does transform my energy fundamentally. So that's why I'm not so concerned about, polluted foods and things like that, because I basically unpollute them in the moment.
That's awesome.
So anyhow, just thought I'd share that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, guys.
We are at the end. Yes, any...
Just want to say goodbye again. I appreciate it so much, guys.
Thanks for the calls, awesome. Flo, Andrew.
Yeah,
we
thanks.
Appreciate the commentary and the
questions. Yeah,
and the questions. Yes, we will talk to everyone next week, and we'll be back at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, and we were. I think we just got cut off anyway. I think Blog Talk
said, "Hiya." There you go.
Wait a second. Now it's frozen.
I can still hear you guys.
You can still hear us?
Yeah.
It won't. Oh, goodness.
There it goes. Wait. Oh, it didn't go. Oh man. All the difficulties from earlier in the year are now kind of reversed now. Now we're having problems getting off the air. We had problems staying on before. Yeah, like Gaia, she's like, no, wait, we want more. Right?
Okay.
I wish Gaia would talk to me. I'll talk to Saturn. How about I have a chat with Saturn? What's Saturn's name? I don't know.
I don't know. You know, Gaia also really loves it when you walk on her with your bare feet because you get a much closer connection to her, too. Bare feet walking, very, very, very valuable.
I got to get to the Central Park or something and get that going on, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I love walking in the street, with no shoes. I actually gave away my shoes one time, and then it just made me feel so like, wow, I'm bare, I got my socks on, but it's like, wow, this is just liberating. Then the person I was with was like, why'd you give away your shoes? And I'm like, because they were kind of small. This guy didn't have any. Why not? So it was really cool, and I just felt so good after. And we had a really great conversation about it afterwards, too, so that whole day was beautiful. It was a couple of weeks ago to this very day.
I think we are about to lose everything because everything on my computer is starting to shut down. I don't know what happened.
Alrighty then, guys. Let me just... I appreciate you guys, and I'll just